New York City, upset city. Nick Kyrgios has taken out Daniil Medvedev and Frances Tiafoe has taken out Rafael Nadal in the 4th round of the US Open. How far are Nick and Frances going to go? We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about how they beat those guys, Medvedev and Nadal, 2 of the toughest guys on these US Open courts to beat. We'll talk about how it happened, and we'll talk about the 3 possible scenarios for world number 1 coming out of the US Open. Nadal, Alcaraz, and Casper Ruud, friend of the show. Plus, we'll talk about what I said about Rafael Nadal's sportsmanship that got me in some hot water with some Rafa fans. Let's get into all this on The Slice, presented by PointsBet Canada. Okay, people. Welcome back to The Slice. Stephen Boughton here to deliver The Slice to you if you didn't know. First thing you got to do is subscribe to the Monday Bagel, which is our newsletter. Down below, free game Monday, free content, and you get entered into a draw every month to win merchandise. No brainer. Also, The Slice is presented by PointsBet Canada. So let's just quickly look at the odds in the 4 matchups on the men's side here. I'm going to cover the men's side in this video. I'll touch on the women's, but we'll do more of a reaction to their quarterfinal matchups in the semifinals preview. So we got Kyrgios versus Khachanov, Berrettini versus Ruud, Alcaraz versus Sinner, Rublev versus Tiafoe. That's the quarterfinal matchups. And it's pretty amazing because no big 3, obviously. And what I was noticing also is there's no big 3, but then there's also none of the next big 3 that we thought. And that would be Stefanos, Zverev, and Medvedev. They're not here. So super interesting. The odds from PointsBet Canada. Click the link below if you're on Ontario to join. That helps us out and it helps you get 50 free bucks to bet with. Kyrgios versus Khachanov. The odds favor Kyrgios. That's not surprising. 1.21 to 4.60 for Khachanov. Kyrgios pretty big favorite in that one. And then Berrettini Ruud, this is a nail biter, I think. We got 1.95 for Berrettini and 1.87 for Ruud. So Ruud the slight favorite in that matchup, according to PointsBet. Then we got Alcaraz, and these odds could change, by the way, before the matches happen. But we got Alcaraz at 1.48 to Sinner at 2.7. So they actually got Alcaraz as quite a big favorite, even though Sinner's beat him the last 2 times they played, which we'll talk about. And then Rublev at 2.0 and Tiafoe at 1.83. So Tiafoe, the slight favorite in that matchup. So how did it happen? Let's talk about that first. How did Nick Kyrgios beat Medvedev, and how did Frances Tiafoe beat Nadal? Start with Tiafoe beats Nadal. What a performance. You just got, like, I don't care if you're a Nadal fan, you're a passionate, it's obviously going to suck for your guy to lose in the 4th round, but how can you not like Tiafoe? Just such a great guy. American, does it in front of his own box. He had Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards in his camp, which is cool to see. And yeah, Tiafoe just played an amazing match. Nadal probably didn't play his best. He admitted that, or definitely didn't play his best. But it's always a graph. You know, if one player is playing amazing, it's harder to play your best. So the main 3 things that I noticed that got Tiafoe the W is Tiafoe's backhand is the number 1 thing. The Tiafoe backhand, he kind of has a similar backhand to Nick Kyrgios, actually, right? The very flat stroke, doesn't use his wrist a lot to generate topspin, hits it pretty flat. And from up high, because Nadal's one of his main strategies is to get the ball up high to his opponents, especially on the backhand. That's kind of where he goes to, jab at his opponent and get him back into the backhand corner. It's his classic play. As Tony Nadal, actually, I've talked to him and he told me, he's like, you need to play higher.
Higher.
Yes, higher. So the goal is to get the ball up to make to push opponents back and get them uncomfortable so you can use the forehand if you're Rafa. Tiafoe was able to defend and drive from his backhand up around his shoulder. He was really smart taking small steps into the court to take it on the rise and just hitting that, executing on it perfectly, basically all match long. He was able to go up the line, defending or driving to keep Nadal honest and to hurt him, to switch up the pace or the angle. And then he was able to go cross, usually driving it to really open him up, because if Nadal was cheating to the backhand side. So he just did that to perfection. And it's basically what you have to do if you're going to beat Nadal, is be able to handle your backhand really, really well. And Tiafoe did that. So that was very good from Tiafoe. And Nadal mentioned this in the presser. Tiafoe's younger and faster. So before the match in the preview, I said Tiafoe has the physicality to beat and the game to beat Nadal. He's got an all-around game, and he's younger, faster, maybe can go longer, And Father Time is definitely catching up with Nadal. We've seen that when he lost from 2 sets up to Tsitsipas, I think 2021 Australian Open. Another loss here to a younger, fitter, obviously, guy who's like literally more than 10 years younger than him. So that makes sense, and that's an advantage that I think Tiafoe took advantage of. And throughout the match, he was able to keep a really good level and keep a good focus and stamina. And that leads me into the third thing that I think won Tiafoe this match was Tiafoe's mental lock. Like mentally, Tiafoe has been unfocused or he's gone away in matches before. And he said afterwards he was really focused on just not getting broken early in the sets, especially at the beginning of the match. Like because then once you get into it and you're on serve, you feel like he can loosen up and play. And he said he was just able to, he was really happy with how he was able to match Rafa's intensity and focus throughout the match. And that was big. He obviously did that because he kept a more clean level throughout the match. And Rafa kind of went up and down, et cetera, et cetera. So amazing match from Tiafoe, not a great match from Rafa. And that's what happens. You're going to lose when a top player like Tiafoe is playing well. So now what I said about Rafa, I put out a tweet out there. I'll put it up here that, blew up. I think it was fuel for the fire of salty Djokovic fans who don't have their guy here. But I noticed when Rafa broke Tiafoe to win the second set 6-4, on Tiafoe's second set point, Rafa, I didn't quite see what it was, but I'm pretty sure Nadal went to the towel and came back and was making Tiafoe wait to serve. He put up his hand, but my thought was, it doesn't matter if you put up your hand. Like that's not, you made the guy who's ready to serve when he's already down break point, you made him wait. And I don't think Nadal's a bad guy. I don't think it's like actual sportsmanship. I just think he's like making a guy wait because he knows he can take the time he needs and he's not going to get penalized like other players might. So literally at the French Open last year, we saw Federer get a warning for making Cilic wait in a match that like literally, was the second round and Federer I think it was second round and Federer beat him. So other people get penalized, and my thought was that's poor sportsmanship. It doesn't mean Rafa's a poor sportsman. I'm not saying anything. I think he has amazing character, and I think he's a great guy. But that was poor sportsmanship because you're just not ready, and you're supposed to play to the pace of the server. And it's not like Tiafoe was playing ultra fast either. So that was interesting for me. And then also at the end of the first set, when Nadal lost, he took what we thought was a medical timeout for like 8 to 10 minutes. But he said afterwards that it actually wasn't a medical timeout. It was just a bathroom break. And that took, over 8 minutes, which a lot of people were frustrated by. So I just don't understand how that happens. Nadal just knows he can kind of just beat to his own drum out there. And that frustrates a lot of people. So if you're a Nadal fan, I'm not coming at your guy saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying there's a reason why people are frustrated with it. And that's just where we're at, I guess. That's just where we're at. So I think Nadal's a great sport. I'm not saying he's a bad sportsman, but that was a bit whack. And I'm glad Tiafoe was able to get through that and not let it bother him too much. Moving on to Kyrgios versus Medvedev. Incredibly high level match. I think that's the new match of the tournament for me, in my opinion, even though it was only 4 sets. The first set was so close. Could have gone either way. I think they broke each other and then they eventually got to a tiebreaker. And it was like 12-10, I think, in the tiebreaker. Basically, Kyrgios just eked out of that. And the 3 reasons why Kyrgios won this one, he won that first set. I think if he had lost, he was getting he teed his racket, threw it on the ground, I think twice in that first set tiebreaker. If he had lost that, I could have seen him mentally going away. And I don't think he would have come back from down. I think that would have really helped Medvedev get rolling. And I don't know if Kyrgios would have been able to come back. But he won that set, lost the second set, and Kyrgios won the serving battle. It was close. They both served decently. Like their percentages of first serve win percentage, second serve win percentage, and aces were like the same pretty much. But Kyrgios served 71% first serves and which is crazy for how big he's serving. And Medvedev only served 59%, which is like probably more realistic for if you're just trying to bomb it on every serve. So Kyrgios won that serving battle, which isn't maybe necessarily surprising, but he's just serving at such a high rate. It's very, very, very impressive. And the pressure difference, I think, helped Kyrgios and hurt Medvedev. Medvedev, we've seen over and over, has not played his best tennis when he is trying to defend world number 1 or when he's playing basically as the favorite. So, I think ever since he lost to Nadal at the Australian Open when he was up 2-0 and he absolutely should have won that match, I think it's really hurt him. He just hasn't really been the same player since, right? He was the type of guy where everyone was afraid to play him. Djokovic, Nadal, I promise you they were afraid. He was like one of the guys to beat, like probably the guy to beat on a hard court. He doesn't have that killer sting after that. And that's for a number of reasons. the war in Russia, or the Russian war in Ukraine. That's stressful for him, not being able to play Wimbledon. That obviously sucks. He had a hernia. So he's just had a tough year in that way. But I think he'll regroup and he won't be number one anymore. So huge win for Kyrgios. How far are they going to go? Kyrgios is now the favorite, the odds outright favorite on PointsBet Canada to win the tournament. And it's amazing. It's amazing wide open matchup field here. If we just look again at the matchups, Kyrgios versus Khachanov. I think Kyrgios is big time going to win that because it's funny, they've had a bit of beef. They've gone back and forth on Twitter before. I mean, Khachanov has the game, and now the thing is, there's going to be pressure on Kyrgios, right? Because he knows, everyone's going to be talking, that he knows that his goal would be to win this tournament now, for sure. He doesn't have to play Djokovic like he did in Wimbledon. And he's a lot of people think he's the favorite. I'm not so convinced he's the favorite. I think there's like 6 guys here that wouldn't surprise me if they won. But now there's going to be more pressure on Nick. There's going to be pressure in that Khachanov match. And then against Ruud or Berrettini, especially if it's Berrettini, there's going to be pressure because Berrettini's the Italian hammer. Then we got Berrettini-Ruud, super good matchup. That's the final of Gstaad, which is where I am right now. And that was a great matchup. I think on the hard courts, the quicker hard courts, I'm leading Berrettini for sure. But he's looked a little bit sluggish in some matches in this tournament so far. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Alcaraz versus Sinner, just amazingly juicy match. Sinner's won the last 2. My thought is that Sinner, I think, has like more actual firepower than Alcaraz does. Alcaraz is the much better athlete. Not much better, but like he's the better athlete, better defender. But we've seen Sinner in the last 2 matches kind of blitz him. So I think Alcaraz has to play ultra aggressive front foot tennis coming forward and make Sinner defend. But can he do that over 5 sets? So I don't know. I'm actually like fairly confident in Sinner in that matchup, but it's just going to be a great match, and Alcaraz could definitely win it too. And then Tiafoe Rublev, I really don't have a great read on that one, but it's a great matchup. So what are the number 1 scenarios coming out of this tournament? I said I'd talk about it. So Nadal can still be number 1. Nadal will be number 1 if Ruud or Alcaraz don't make the final. Does that make sense? So if Ruud or Alcaraz lose in the quarterfinals or the semifinals, Nadal's number 1. Alcaraz will be number 1 if he wins the title or if he loses in the final to someone not named Casper Ruud. And the same thing for Casper Ruud. He'll be number 1 if he makes the final or if he wins the tournament or loses in the final to someone not named Alcaraz. Wouldn't it be amazing if Casper Ruud and Alcaraz made the final and then just like whoever wins the US Open and becomes world number 1 for the first time? That would be crazy. I have more faith, I think, in Alcaraz making the final than I do Ruud, but again, we're in kind of uncharted territories, aren't we, here on the men's draw? We got it wide open. We got 4 guys there who have not won a slam. All 3 guys who have made a slam final, Ruud, Berrettini, and Kyrgios, are on the top. I don't think any of the 4 bottom guys have even made it to a semifinal of a slam before. So just a field of dreams for these players, and it's very cool to see. I want to look at the women's quarterfinal matchups here, and I won't get too deep into them. Just due to time, but I will break them down after the fact in the semifinals. We got great matchups. Swiatek versus Pegula. I don't know why I can't. Jessica Pegula. 1 versus 8. I'm leaning Swiatek, but she's looked more beatable for sure in the last few weeks, and Pegula's a baller. Pliskova versus Sabalenka. I'm leaning Sabalenka there. Coco Gauff versus Caroline Garcia. I've seen enough from Caroline Garcia that I think she's the favorite in that match. She's actually ranked, or not ranked higher, but I think she's the favorite in that match. And then we got Ons Jabeur versus Tomljanovic. And Tomljanovic is kind of playing in a similar way to Garcia right now. Super good hitting, powerful strokes. And on these courts, I'm actually wouldn't be surprised if she upsets Jabeur. So we'll see about that. That's a quick look at the women's draw, but a serious look at the men's. How Tiafoe beat Nadal, how Kyrgios beat Medvedev. What are your thoughts? Leave your slice down below. Subscribe to the Monday Bagel. Get around my Twitter at the Slice Steven for more hot takes like that. And I can't wait for this real second week to keep going here of the US Open. And we will see who takes the opportunity for glory. Who's going to get their slam and who's going to get to number 1. It's going to be super interesting.